So what a great session today, and what a great week so far. I want to dive into our daily trading recap, and I want to break down 3 trades that I took. We're going to cover those trades, what I saw there. We'll break down the actual TA, and I'll give you guys a step-by-step guide on how you could start trading either VWAP, MACD, mean reversion. I've got an envelope system here. So we're working with a couple different, we'll call them tools in our toolbox. We can use them all together. We can use, one of these indicators, one of these systems alone. So there's a lot you hopefully will be able to take away from this video. And as you tune into each session each day, as I show you myself on a daily basis making money, and not every day I'm going to make money, right? Some weeks I might actually not make money. I just want to be transparent, and I want to bring this transparency to an industry that is lacking in it. So today, these 3 trades I do want to cover are going to be CELH, DAR, and WDAY. You can see up here on the top left, 420 on CELH, 565 on DAR, and then 250 profit on WDAY. So let's real quick pull up today's P&L. I did close today up $889 across 7 total trades. And if we look at this week so far, I am now sitting up 2,334 on the week. So it has been, like I said, Monday, Tuesday, 2 very solid, very green days. And that puts me at an average daily P&L of 1,167. So being able to make an extra $1,200 a day, just ask yourself, if that would be worth it for you. If yes, keep watching. Now, last week, obviously, our average daily P&L was $500. We are continuing to ramp up this account. We are scaling this account and increasing our position size as we go. So from $300 days in August to $500 days last week, now we're averaging about $1,200 per day. The system is performing, and it's performing very well. So let's start by pulling up my software. And the first trade I want to talk about is this order that came through on CELH. Now, these were the CELH calls expiring 9/19/25. My software gives me obviously that directional bias. So whether it's a call or a put, so long, which I'm betting on, obviously, that stock to go up if it's a call, or short. If it's put, I'm betting on that stock to go down. That's what I mean by directional bias. And then secondly, or really firstly, I get the stock that I'm actually going to look to trade. So you can use watch lists, you can use scanners, you can use software on your own to figure out what stock to look at in the first place, and then figure out at that point from a directional bias perspective, maybe that's TA you're doing. But for the most part, I get the stock I trade, I get the directional bias from my software. At that point, I then look at the chart and I use technical analysis to actually manage that trade. So you can use the TA I'm using even though you don't have my software. So let's dive into that. CELH came through at 10:05. Now, if I pull up CELH, our top left chart here, we can first start by identifying, are we balanced or are we not balanced? So coming into the open, we could see clearly here that we were balanced on CELH. Knowing that, what can we expect? We can expect a reversion to our mean. And so this entry here was key. And it was key for 2 reasons on CELH. And I want to spend more time talking about this entry versus the exit, because I did hold this thing through to essentially EOD, so end of day. So you should see a pattern here. This was another instance where we saw an open, a real quick rejection off our middle VWAP and actually off our top VWAP as well. A clear move to the downside, another rejection off our middle VWAP, and then we started trading below middle VWAP. You could see here, traded on bottom VWAP. At the same time, we saw a cross of MACD going right into the open. That gave us that, again, directional confirmation that we were going to be heading to the downside. Speeds started increasing here as our MACD diverged further apart. You could see by these bars as they continued to get larger. Now, we've got our low here at 53.53. At that point, if we pull up our envelope system, that low should line up with our lowest bar at 53.53, which we were super far, obviously, outside of our envelope system, which meant we reverted very far off of our mean. And at that point, it's how much lower will it go? So we watch to see when buyers start to get more aggressive, when sellers start to step off. But we also want to understand the correlation as to how far at that point we were trading, not just off our mean, but outside of our further outmost band. Okay. So my entry where I did get involved was right around 10.05. Okay. So you can see I charted out my entry price by this golden line there, around 54.30s per share. At this point, MACD was really pointing downward. That was our largest bar, and we saw that low at 53.53. Quick bounce here. You can see obviously my entry point. We saw MACD start to turn around. Our MAs started to converge and get closer together. We eventually obviously did see that cross. But keep in mind, if we waited for MACD cross, we would have missed out on this portion of the move. We got involved right here. So we also caught, I would say an additional, I would say we caught potentially an additional 0.5% by being able to look at our VWAP, because things were very clear here on VWAP. VWAP, okay, just about 53. We were pretty far off our bottom VWAP. Knowing that we were balanced, we then expected a reversion back up to our mid-tide or our mean. And at this point, that was, again, you could see here where we traded back up to our mean. That was the closest we got up to our mean off of the open. So we were pretty far off of our mean. Started moving a bit further away from our bottom VWAP and tracing up closer to our mean. Saw this real quick low, really a rejection, off of this low, if you want to look at it that way. Moved back into our mean, started trading on our middle VWAP, broke above. This was a very significant candle where we actually closed above. Second candle, closed above. Third, closed above. Fourth. And at that point, give it 4 or 5 1-minute candles, it looked like price at that point had really shifted and started to turn around. And if we highlight exactly when that would have been, again, if you wait 1, 2, 3, give it 5 1-minute candle closes above middle VWAP or whatever at that point you deem to be your entry point, which again for us was middle VWAP. Well, we saw, if we use our envelope system, not a whole lot there because we were super far outside anyway, and we knew that. We knew it would come back up. We just didn't know when. And so again, here, this would have been a great instance of waiting for confirmation, clear break above. At that point, we really just started trading on our middle VWAP, okay? So real clear there. Volume kind of died out. Things started to slow down. MACD did flip. Started pushing to the upside, diverging further apart after that convergence. So after that clear shift of direction, we reverted back up into our envelope system. We then saw we reverted back across our blue, purple, gold, green, and we started closing on our red, and then obviously our 8-day EMA there, our mean. And then it was the ebb and flow of high to mean to low to mean to high to mean to low. So our consistency there, obviously seeing that we were still balanced, and we started trading again during this 30-minute period around that middle VWAP. Boom, breakout to the upside. Now, this was very important breakout to the upside. It formed a new high, not necessarily high of day, right? Because our open here was at 56.06, but this was pretty significant. Once we had moved up to top VWAP here, well, then at that point, things looked really clear for a continuation of movement higher, which we then saw. Now, I thought this thing could continue pushing higher after we did form that high there at around 55.90. We were trading right above top VWAP. At that point, if we look at our envelope system, this was technically didn't form a higher bar, and this is something I could have looked at on a higher band, because you could see here, this was bar that was charted higher on a higher band, so our purple band, and then this bar, which was higher than this previous bar, was actually not charted on the purple band. Can we all see that there? That should be pretty clear. I just didn't catch it in the moment, but if we looked here at this high on our purple band, that was not our highest bar of the day, right? We had our highest bar of the day at open, but our highest bar of the day at open was on our green band. So at this point, again, we saw highest band of the day on a lower bar. And then here we go, highest bar of the day on a lower band. Now, all of a sudden, we are on our golden band. Okay, I should have taking myself out of the move here. I stayed in, and unfortunately, I ended up closing for a lesser profit than I would have locked in up here at the top. That should have indicated to us a clear false high. That was the rundown on CELH. So DAR, let's talk about this one. Coming into the open, we were very close to moving vertical. You can see here how our MAs came very close together, but we did not see a cross. We did not actually get that vertical move. My entry was right around here, 3207. Again, just moments before we went vertical. So I got involved in DAR calls before DAR did go vertical. That is how I was able to capture part of this move, but I did miss out on a large chunk right here, because I thought that this, it looks skewed now in proportion because that move was so large after, I thought this was the vertical move. But turns out this was the vertical move. Can't complain. We still locked in a profit there. Got involved as direction was pretty clear after we broke over mid VWAP, reverted off our low tide to mid tide to high tide, started riding top VWAP, small retracements, traded super far off middle VWAP, back to high tide, pulled back into, again, just about our entry here. You can see where we did enter. This thing just was primed to move higher as it did continue forming higher highs throughout the session. And then we start to flatten out for a bit here at around 1349. Okay, so around 150 is when things start to flatten out, as in volume died down. I thought that would be volume died down, moving back down to the downside because of that lack of volume. And again, I'm still after trading for over 9 years, even after just showing you that I put down P&L today. You've been watching the sessions and I've been putting down profit. This does work, but at one point or another, you're going to have to realize you're never going to be able to capitalize on max profit. This is going to be a psychological thing that most of you will deal with, which is looking at a trade after you got out of the trade. This is a great example where we caught this really nice move, okay, from our entry to our exit. It was a very clear, very clean move. And yes, we could have capitalized on quite literally 2 to 3 times more if we had just held, but don't ever beat yourself up for taking profit. Okay, don't ever beat yourself up for taking profit, because this could have also gone the other way. And we could see here, once we started seeing crosses on the MACD, sellers started to come in here. It became more apparent to me at that point, using the tools I had, that could have been a downwards momentum move. I don't know if this was news. I don't know what happened here, but DAR did pop to the upside. And again, DAR was a 33% profit. So we did make $531 net P&L on the day. That was only $1,500 in position size. So I could have just locked in that profit and called it a day, which, again, still happy with this trade overall. You can see here entries and exit there right before the true vertical move. So if we're looking at markets trading horizontal 85% of the time, 15% vertical, we obviously know that after trading vertical, we're going to revert back to horizontal and start trading horizontal. I just thought that was going to be at that point, right? I did not assume that vertical move that we were in had not yet been captured. And then we had a short position that we did take on W day. And again, all my trades I call out inside of my mentorship group. I can actually show you here with inside the mentorship group server where I posted, obviously, that I bought those W day 215 puts, my fill price at 310. And then you could see later on when I did post that exit, okay, 16.13%. That was the gross ROI behind W Day. Sold those contracts at 360. And you can even see students inside my mentorship locking in profit. You could see Jamie's profit here. And the profits are going to stack up from all the callouts that I did make, obviously, on the day. IREN was another one that I'm not talking about, but we did take IREN as well. Again, I took 7 trades today. If you're interested in following along and copying my trades, I'll put a link in the description below to my mentorship, and you can check that out and you can join. You can trade live with me every single morning. And the last trade I did take that I want to talk about was W Day, which was a super clear example where W Day had been trading balanced for several sessions. We could easily expect reversions to our mean. We were forming bars on lower bands up until really that bar at about 2 o'clock when things started to flatten out and we did move a bit to the upside. This was a smaller profit, right? 16-17% is nothing crazy, but we were able to capitalize on this momentum, very clear shift to the downside after that MACD cross. So this could have been, hey, let's get involved on this MACD cross. Again, MACD is going to be a bit delayed. My entry was here, MACD cross was here, so I was able to catch a bit more. VWAP, very clear as well. After my entry, we did push up a bit, was temporarily down. Quick rejection at our mean or our middle VWAP, traded back down into my entry price, started forming lower lows. Then we touched our bottom VWAP. That definitely was a sign, hey, we could be a little bit oversold. We could be trading a bit low in respect to obviously the idea that we will move from low tide back to mid tide. That was technically our lowest point of the day. If we ignore this wick toward the last couple minutes, that was really low of day, which again, you would have known that was a low of day due to the MACD there and that false lower low, because that bar did not actually close on a lower band. And then we ended up closing this one out right before the close. Sometimes I'll just let the trades run. If we're really close to a signal, whether it's exit, take profit for stop or take profit, right? Just depending. So that was today's recap. Again, we're sitting up on the week. It's been a great week so far. I'll go ahead. If you guys are interested, you can join the mentorship. I'll put a link below. Subscribe, turn on post notifications, 6 p.m. Eastern every day. We are posting these trade recaps. All right. See you in the next one.